Well, here we are. Just a nice, easy topic today. What is existentialism and why does it matter? So, piece of cake, right? So, what color best works with this one? Maybe it's red. I'm gonna do a red one. Assuming this works. Yep, it works. All right, so we'll slide this over. Well, the truth is, for the past month, since the beginning of September, we've been talking about existentialism all along. As we compare between life under the sun, S-U-N, and life under the sun, S-O-N. But we're going to take a deeper dive into what is existential and then what happens. And we'll see the dynamic, what happens when you add ism to something. When you and the change that happens to this, which becomes descriptive or was descriptive and then becomes a philosophy. So it's also, when you talk about existentialism, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, we're going to talk existentialism. It's a pretty impressive word. And the truth is, if you try to talk about existentialism with somebody, what happens? They kind of glaze over, right? Okay, glaze over and yeah, okay, sure. When the truth is, I would say, according to the application of the RSS, that most everybody is a practicing existentialist, at least in our country here. To some degree or another. But really, honestly, especially in today's world, the sad part of this is the toll that existentialism is taking on people in general, and I say young people in particular, living with this. So we'll take a look. We're going to examine existentialism. We'll compare then what this philosophy has to say in reference to the Bible. So we'll compare what the Bible says about it, and then also talk about why it matters. So let's just launch into it. Existentialism defined. Can anybody, just out of curiosity, can anybody come up real quick? Let's go.
So it's like where the philosophy that life has no meaning outside of the meaning we give to it.
Yeah, that's a great, concise definition. That's exactly it. But let's talk about how it gets there. Okay, so here we've got existentialism. So, it doesn't take a experienced linguist to see the root word in this. So what's the root word? Exist, yeah. So we start with then the word exist. And so I'm just going to draw from Webster's. And I like to compare. I've got my 1975, yes, there was life in 1975, my 1975 Webster's Dictionary, and I like to compare it to 2024 to see, okay, what's changed a little bit. So here's 1975. To exist is, you're going to be stunned by this, to have being. Or they to have being, and they add to that whether material or spiritual. I find that to be stunning because it's almost like a confession or admission right up front that there is being apart from what is material, what is energy, those types of things. And I bet there's a great story behind this right here.
That's why I got it.
Okay. So then, or to have being in space and time. The 2024 version added this. They added having being in a specified place or with respect to understood limitations or conditions. I'm not sure how to unpack that one. But I do know that this being, so they kept this definition here. So you can use it for, you and I, we exist, right? We have being. You can say God exists, right? You can say that according to this definition. Or ask the question, do unicorns exist? There's, so you can see where that comes from. So in essence, now, as it relates to the human experience, really what it comes down to is to exist is to have being. So now let's expand this word to existence. Existence then is a reality as experienced in being. Ponder that one for a little while. Reality is experienced in, or as presented in experience, it's sentient or living being, the state or fact of having being. So everything is centered around having being or existence. Have you ever stopped to reflect on that? I mean, this is campfire type discussions. I have being. Wow. Think about that a little bit. I'll pick up my hand, I can open and close it. I have thoughts going on around in my head. I have a unique perspective because I'm looking at everything through my eyes. And as I'm saying these things, you're doing exactly the same thing, but not like me. And so now, yeah, there's that whole sense of being. You ever stop and ponder that at all? How remarkable this is. Well, that's existence. Now, let's add another part to this. We go to existential. Like this, existential. In my 1975, which no change in 24, says of, relating to, or affirming existence. Of, relating to, or affirming existence. It is grounded in existence or the experience of existence. We've seen this word a lot lately, haven't we, in the media?
Existential threat.
Yeah, existential threat. Can you think of any examples? Any examples in the media that where they talk about existential threat?
Climate change,
Okay.
AI,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are two.
The top of my mind was Israel. Israel now attacked, let's see, from this side, now this side, now this side. And behind each of these attacks is a country that has publicly stated one of their main objectives is to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. What do we call that? An existential threat. Yeah. So what is being threatened? Their existence, their affirmation of existing right here. So yeah, you're right. AI, that was another one. AI is an existential threat to the Screenwriters Guild. Did you hear that one? That was with the screenwriters strike, because they're afraid that artificial intelligence is going to take their jobs away. So there's we've heard this one. I like this one. So who has been called an existential threat to democracy?
Every politician ever.
Yeah, there's one particular target right now. Trump is being called an existential threat to democracy, killing democracy. I'm going to digress just a little bit. I find that amusing. I mean, that's a great catchphrase. I think it's caught on. What I find amusing about it is the party that is launching that accusation is the one that instituted superdelegates, selected the presidential nominee without a vote, is prevalent on progressive college campuses to shut down free speech, but I digress. All right, so now that we've gone through all these words, now we're going to add ism. Because all these, so far, all of these are perfectly good words, perfectly good descriptions of what's taking place. But now, what happens when you add ism? What was descriptive becomes philosophy. One of my favorite examples is the word pragmatic. You know what pragmatic means? Yeah, practical solution. What works? I can't think of any examples right off the top of my head.
Pragmatic approach to healthcare.
Oh yeah. Does it work or doesn't it? Yeah, excellent. But now what happens when you put ism to pragmatic? Pragmatism. Let's use your healthcare example. Now it becomes a philosophy. Truth is grounded in what works. The truth of propagating a healthy race, pragmatically means then you should get rid of all the defects, those with diseases, and get rid of, those that having some debilitating effect on their body or whatever. Sounds kind of like Nazism, doesn't it? Aryanism, yeah. So you can see then where ism kind of generates into something that's not very good. And so it is with existentialism. Existentialism, now I'm going to read directly from a description that was given by, it wasn't Wikipedia, although it was very similar. It was another one of those sites. So I'm just going to read directly. They say that existentialism is chiefly a 20th century philosophical movement. So 20th century, that'd be the 1900s. 20th century philosophical movement embracing diverse doctrines but centering on analysis of individual existence in an unfathomable universe, in the plight of the individual who must assume ultimate responsibility for acts of free will without any certain knowledge of what is right or wrong or good or bad. In other words, everything that Matthew said earlier. Another way to put it, it recognizes the dilemma of existence, meaning, why in the world are we even here? How did this even happen? So there's that dilemma of existence, being in a meaningless or accidental universe that is void of absolutes beyond what's material. So the common answer to this dilemma for the individual is to establish with his or her own free will their own meaning, which ultimately, and this is the absurdity of it, is meaningless. If meaning has to come from us, then essentially it's meaningless. That's the dilemma. So the individual establishes his or her own meaning or purpose along with a set of values. The individual is the final arbiter of meaning and what is right and what is wrong. And then what happens is according to this view, now you get a whole community of people who are somewhat like-minded, and in this community, then this community together socially constructs meaning and values. So that what we believe, or what is true, becomes what is called then a social construct. The long and short of it, existentialism is characterized by these points. Each person is confronted with what is called the absurdity of existence. We don't know why we exist, therefore there is no prescribed meaning. Since there is no prescribed meaning, we are utterly free. We have a true free will. Since we have a true free will, we can thus create our own meaning. And if enough people have this shared meaning and values, then socially we can reinforce this meaning. We can enforce this meaning upon others and values, even to the point of law enforcement. One writer put it this way: confronted with the absurdity of existence, the burden of freedom, and the question of how to create meaning in their lives. So we're gonna, we'll unpack this part, the law enforcement and get enough people together in a socially constructed values. In fact, let's just take a quick view, just a couple of minutes here to talk about, so how does a true existentialist view Christianity? How do you think? Yeah.
Escapism.
Yeah, I would say I'd say that's a good one.
A social control structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On its surface, do they view Christianity as a threat?
No.
No, to the true existentialist, even if you as an individual have confronted your existence and with your free will adopted biblical values and meaning, then good for you. Nice. Okay. I'm glad that works for you. That's good. So another way to put it is Christianity to the true existentialist, well, it's only mostly good, to borrow from the, what is that, Princess Bride? It's only mostly good. Because what happens when you cross the line? As soon as you insist that biblical meaning and values is truth, and as soon as you socially uphold these values and even legislate these values, then you've violated the application of existentialism. Can you think of any examples? I mean, they're just prevalent. Can you think of any examples where Christianity today has crossed the line, so to speak, to true existentialism? Abortion? Absolutely. Yeah.
But to be fair, I
Mhm.
think the thing with existentialism is that there is going to be some value set
Mhm.
that is prevalent in legislature. So I
Yeah.
think
Mhm.
the existentialists would expect that and not be so offended as oh, Christianity has violated my philosophy as much as Christianity has violated my personal preferences. Because existentialism would expect something like Christianity to be in legislature. So
Yeah, that is true. It's I would argue though that my personal values and my philosophy, there's a direct connect there. And abortion is certainly a good example. I'm going to offer a different one though. So what's it to you? what's it to you Christians if a teenager who confronts his or her own existence and says, with my free will, I don't like this. I was born a girl, but I want to be a boy. Or I was born a boy and I want to be a girl. And so we've crossed that line when we said, no, you remain this way. And so we're going to fight legislation that that allows you to take all these drugs or go through these surgeries and so forth. How's that for an example?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is more that, like, even if the proponent of existentialism doesn't like that
Mm-hmm.
and thinks that each person should be able to decide for themselves, existentialism, as you said earlier, also predicts
Right.
that something will be that way. So they might get offended, but it isn't actually existentialism itself. It's just kind of in like a contradiction
Sure.
of the person who upholds that.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. I get it. And I would even take it a step further and say it's not uncommon to have shared values too. That Christianity would have shared values with what's already socially constructed. So that's not uncommon either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the existentialists or the application of existentialism, what I am saying though, in the true application, it opens the door wide open to this sense of who am I, and I'm going to make my own decisions as far as that which that's what benefits me or applies to me. And so here, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on. Here is where the door has really been opened, wide open, to so many of the social ills that we're experiencing today. But there's more than that. I'll come back to that though. But for now that we've gone through what it is and gives us a good understanding of what is true existentialism, let's take a look at what the Bible says about being. And really, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. What does the Bible say about being? So this is the biblical view versus the existential view of being. All right, where are we going to go to start with? Open your Bibles to, any guess?
Genesis.
Genesis chapter 1. It seems like almost every lesson we always start with Genesis 1, 26 to 28. Genesis chapter 1, 26 to 28. Somebody wants to read that, please.
I can get it. 26.
Mm-hmm.
Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.
Okay. So again, we've talked about this passage a lot. So first of all, we find out that God made man in his image. Anybody remember what that means? In his image? let's see. Use image, what's the Latin word for that?
Magio Dio.
Imagio Dei, yeah. Imago Dei, that's it, right there. Yeah, made in his image. So what does that mean? First of all, it means that we share in God's communicable attributes. So God has communicable attributes that we share, and God has incommunicable attributes that we don't share. Can you think of an example of an incommunicable attribute?
Always present.
Yeah, there you go. Everywhere present. So what are some communicable attributes that we share with God?
Sense of right and wrong.
Okay. So yeah, we'll call that right and wrong. Okay.
I mean, like emotions, or
Mhm.
it's probably a better word, but
Okay. We certainly have different characteristics of emotions. Love.
creativity.
Yep. Creativity, that's good. Mhm.
Cooperation.
Okay. How about that sense of, well, maybe that comes up here, that sense of justice. And then we can add mercy to that. Yeah. So we share in those attributes that that God has. We reflect and imitate these attributes more and more. In his image also means that we have a spiritual nature. We are made up of body and soul. The body will die and one day resurrect, but the soul lives on. So we have body and soul. I think to Esther's point earlier, we have personality. That sense of personality. We talked about cognizant of morality. We exercise dominion over the earth. And so here we have it in one passage, how we came into being, the reason we are made, and both of which give meaning. So we have this right here. Of course, there was creation. We had a significant event take place in Genesis chapter 3. So go to Genesis 3:16 through 19. And this is God speaking after sin was ushered into the world. Assume he wants to read that one. Genesis chapter 3.
To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children, and desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. All thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field.
Okay, take one more verse.
Okay. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you shall return.
So the thing that we notice in this curse is that the fall of man did not change man's meaning and purpose. That part didn't change. But what did it change? The curse, which made such dominion and such glory very difficult. But then the fall, if we stopped right there, things would not look good. So in the fall also ushered in redemption. So somebody go on and read verses 20 and 21.
The man called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. And the Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments of skins and clothed them.
So here now we have redemption. Adam named his wife Eve. Literally, the word Eve means life giver. Adam believed, Adam believed God's promise in verse 15. He said, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And then we also have in verse 21 God's redemptive action of covering their shame. Remember, they tried to do it with fig leaves. It didn't work. It required the death, a sacrifice, a blood sacrifice, and that blood sacrifice covered their shame, which demonstrates redemption. And both of which are in response to God's promise of redemption. And so then, as we follow along the rest of Scripture, it unveils redemptive history. It unveils each step of the way, the redemptive history then that culminated in the sacrifice of Christ. And the rest of the Bible then reinforces the meaning and purpose as well as values, called biblical values. Let's just take a look at couple passages. Turn now to Psalm 19, 1 through 4. Someone would take that one. Psalm 19, 1 through 4.
Psalm 19, 1 through 4.
Yes, please.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun.
When was the last time that you went out to the night sky and gazed into space? Just gazed out there. And what things came to your mind? I know for me it's the immensity, the absolute immensity. Also, what comes to mind is the absolute consistency. When you take a look at it, I've got this app on my phone. There it is. I was looking over here. There's an app on my phone, and I plug it in, and it shows me where all the planets are and everything. And then if I were to put in a date, let's say October 29th, 2062, and let's go with 10 o'clock p.m. It'll tell me right where Mars is going to be. That sense of consistency, that sense of everything is in their place and such, just blows me away. I mean, design is obvious, and that's where the psalmist is saying, yeah, design is obvious. Look at this. Look at the immensity. Look at the pattern. Look at the consistency. Now let's apply this individually. Go to Psalm 139. Now let's look at verses 13 through 18.
For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them. Did you want me to go to
Through
18?
18.
Okay. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you.
So remember, we're talking about being. We're talking about the biblical view of being. our existence. And so, look at that and look at what the Lord is saying to us in Psalm 139. You know, pro-abortionists like to talk about reproductive health. So we now turn to the author of reproduction. And here becomes another think about it moment. I find that this is I'm a little bit amused that this is lost in the arguments. But if we are truly the product of some organism that randomly came together, that climbed out of some cosmic muck, which, the odds are enormous, whatever, 8 cajillion to 1 or whatever it is. Well, take that and multiply it by 2. Because actually there are 2 similar. One of which is a male with unique body parts that manufactures life-giving sperm, which contributes to a female with unique body parts that not only produces unfertilized eggs, but then allows for a fertilized egg to attach to a uterus in perfect development environment. Put all those things together and you say, wow, how lucky is that? that happened. Why? Why is there actually 2? Of course, the Bible tells us God made them male and female. In Psalm 139, we find that it is actually God that superintends the process. Our inward parts are formed. Again, we're talking about being. Our inward parts were formed. We were fearfully and wonderfully made. Unlike animals, we were given a soul. Even in the womb, God knew us. Let your mind blow on that for a while. Even in the womb, our days on earth were numbered. God was thinking about us infinitely beyond our capability to think, both then and now. Doesn't that give life to meaning and purpose? You and I are not an accident. I'm going to get personal for just a moment and say, my mother. So first of all, in the world's eyes, I was an accident. The official term is a bastard child, but an accident. But she spent my entire youth just drilling it into me. She just kept drilling it into me. You are not an accident. You're here on purpose. God is using you. And so she drilled that into me. Well, we all need to have that drilled into us. None of us were an accident. None of us were just sort of a blip on the screen. Go back and read that again, Psalm 139, and personalize it. You formed my inward parts. You formed Esther's inward parts. You covered May in her mother's womb. You can just go down the list and personalize this. So make it known right away, right here, that you have ultimate meaning and purpose because God specifically made you. He superintended the whole process in your coming into existence, your being. So think about that a bit. Now, let's contrast this with existentialism. So again, we refer back to Ecclesiastes. So you can confront your being with free will towards self-determination all you want. It still doesn't change the fact that you were born, you live, and you die. Existentialism doesn't answer it beyond there. It's you're born, you live, and you die. So have you ever visited some old cemetery? I like the one up at Galena. So you go visit Galena, it was an old mining town, old ghost town. And you visit the cemetery. And, you look at the headstones. First of all, you find what's remarkable are the number of babies and kids who were buried there. Showing how life was so hard at the time. But but on each of these gravestones you have, and I'm just gonna pick a date, let's just say 1936, and we'll just say 1963. So each one has some reference to the born and the dead, right? I mean, that's just normal when you visit that. But the question is right here, the dash between the two, between the born and the dead. The dash on the gravestone between those, within 1, 2, 3 generations, will be just that, a dash. So we wander around and we look at it and say, I wonder what took place with that person, because I have no clue who that person is. And so forth. Nothing more and nothing less. No amount of self-determination or social construction will change that. You're born to live, you die. But so what? That's what I want to talk about. But so what? You can be like the friends I talked about last week in the last lesson and simply say, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Again, we said, for with much wisdom comes much sorrow. So I'm going to answer the question of so what by giving several reasons. Why so what? Number one, first and foremost, and this is the contrast, first and foremost is the absence of redemption. That's probably the biggest so what. That absence of redemption has, of course, both a temporal and eternal consequence. So much is talked about on the eternal consequence. So I don't want to lose that, but that's huge. But there's also a temporal, the here and now. So this brings us to the second one. If life meaning is a result of personal confrontation with existence, exercising free will and then setting our own meaning, then ultimately, and we've said this time and again, ultimately there is no meaning apart from our own limited creation. If that's the case, the outcome, as admitted by leaders professing existentialism, the outcome is anguish and despair. There's a whole genre of movies, not very popular actually, whole genre of movies that would be called existential. I like the title of one. They shoot horses, don't they? Because it proclaims or shows the ultimate essence of existentialism. At least leads to a sense of what it's all for anyway, and to the most to utter depression. Now let's consider thirdly the social cost. Meaningless life leads to denying the sanctity of life. And that's something we're living with today, isn't it? Meaningless life leads to denying the sanctity of life. We see this manifest in abortion, euthanasia, genocide, and suicide, assisted and otherwise. We can add to that list gun violence and school shootings are rampant, given this dark view of life. Adopting different sex reflects making your own purpose, which of course study after study has shown how detrimental it is. Sexual practice outside the confines of marriage. I mean, what's the big deal? Mental health conditions are on the rise. And I'm not saying that existentialism is the cause of all this or solely responsible for all these, but it is the underlying foundation of what's going on. See, we have changed, and I have seen the change, and many of your parents or grandparents have seen the change. That from a society that was under the influence of the salt and light of Christianity to now a society that's under a very secular influence. And so, yeah, one of the common things is your grandparents talk about driving to school in their pickup in the gun rack, and they've got their gun on the rack behind them because they're going to go shooting afterwards. Try that today, driving to a high school with a gun on your gun rack. Not good. Fourthly, is that whole thing about what is truth. What is true for you may not be true for me. Take that to its logical extension. What was true for the Nazi regime concerning Jews? I mean, that was true. That was the social construct, right? What was true for Pol Pot regarding educated people in Cambodia? Yeah, get rid of them. Again, a social construct. What was true to Karl Marx regarding the masses? What was true for the spate of school shooters? I mean, the rhetorical questions could go on and on. You know, at this point, the articulate existentialists would say, but what about Christianity? I mean, come on. Haven't there been evils hoisted on society because of Christianity? And the answer is yes, there has. Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly agree. People and even the church in one form or another have indeed exercised evil, for which there is no excuse. But what's the difference? The fundamental difference.
Christians are being inconsistent with what they believe
Exactly. Nailed it.
or what they say they believe.
Yep. Yep. Those types of things are absolutely inconsistent with Christianity, while his existential thought is a logical conclusion. So then there's just one more part I do want to cover, because just so you know, in the existentialist development, actually this started with the thought of something that was called Christian existentialism. Did you know any of that? Nope. Soren Kierkegaard. Yeah, so he developed a thought called Christian existentialism. He was a Danish theologian, philosopher, poet, social critic, and religious author. And before this existentialist thought diverted into more of the secular realm in the 19th and 20th century, it was Kierkegaard who introduced Christian existentialism. So I'm going to have to read a bit. This is straight out of a paper done through the website Learn Religions, talking about this. So bear with me. A central question in Kierkegaard's writings is how the individual human came to terms with their own existence. For it is that existence which is the most important thing in every person's life. Unfortunately, if we are as if adrift in an infinite sea of possible modes of living with no secure anchor that informs us. So that was the central part. He concluded that this produces despair and anguish. And in the midst of our metaphysical sickness, we will face a crisis which reason and rationality cannot decide. So essentially, he said reason and rationality didn't help. It actually took faith, which brought about that freedom. So the conclusion to that is it's a focus of the triumph of faith over philosophy or intellect. I would add that, of course, over time, this thought evolved into the triumph of intellect over faith, and that's what we're living with today. But I just thought as a side note, I better add that part. All right, this is a lot to cover, yeah.
Wouldn't God face some sort of existentialism?
What? Okay, so,
Because
yeah,
he,
unpack that.
as the first cause,
Mhm.
has no, like we do, higher authority to submit to. So
Mhm.
wouldn't he have to determine his own purpose and whatnot?
That's a compelling thought. My first reaction, and maybe somebody else can jump in there, that presumes a starting point, I think. Because if God existence is eternal, he always was. So there was never a point that would say, why am I here?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a great question. What else? Other thoughts?
I feel like, I don't know, I feel like existentialism kind of hinges on the fact that you don't like know everything. Like there's things you don't know, and the world is so vast. Like I try to create meaning because nothing makes sense. But like God knows everything. He's aware of everything. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And existentialism does seem willfully ignorant. It's like, yeah, you don't know.
I mean, God's existence isn't like our existence.
Right. Yeah, the sentiousness of God, the total knowledge. Yeah, everything.
I guess we can, well, Matthew, I think we
Hard
could
to
just say it isn't a communicable attribute.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, before he created anything,
Mhm.
he was the only thing. So his total knowledge would simply encompass who he is and the possibilities of what he could create. So just like like he knows the outcomes. So his total knowledge would just be like a knowledge that there is nothing outside himself. So in a way, I think he has to have some set purpose. And so I don't know, maybe like I guess yes, he could always have had that purpose, but at the same time that's almost like if he always had it, then where like I guess it's almost like if he exists outside of time and so he's like in a constant state and he has a set purpose like that, where did that like I guess it almost just is kind of like you have to he would have to face that same sort of thing and maybe he wants to like he has his intentions, but at the same time you can't just say that those intentions were set a infinite time ago because like that still means that they were set sometime. So at that point it's almost like the question is why this existential question that God faces is why do I have the motives that I have? And I don't know if that's an answerable question, but it's just something that you face with any first cause situation.
Right. So I would say the thing to consider is, and this is where we have a hard time understanding, is the eternality. So again, and you referenced it, there was never a fixed point for God. Always was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And even his thought, the Bible talks about he knew us before we were formed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I would say that the challenge in that is that, again, being the all-knowing, eternal God, I would say too, there was never a time where he said, "This is my purpose."
Uh-huh. But the question still remains, like, why is God the way he is? If he was never created
Mhm.
and he always was,
Mhm.
there's still the existential question of why is God this way and not another way?
Well, the short answer is because he's God. I mean, not dodging it, but simply because that is the attribute of God.
Yeah.
If he were anything else, then that would not be true, and there would have to be another first cause.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and conclude here. So you know R.C. Sproul, right? Okay. So he has a series of lectures that are called "Ideas Have Consequences." Have you ever heard of that? What Sproul does is he goes through each major philosophy, and he unpacks that, among which is existentialism. But his point is clearly there are bad consequences that are arising from different ideas. Ideas truly have consequences. There are bad consequences resulting from an idea of self-determined existence, meaning, and purpose. But that's not why we denounce this philosophy. Certainly, those are good reasons to denounce it, but primarily we do so because we honor and glorify the one who made us, the one who gave us being, the one who redeems our being, who sustains us, who adopted us as his own. And all of which, in all of this, he gives us a sure hope that all things work together for our good and for his glory. So that's our overview of existentialism. Next week, we get back to Ecclesiastes, the first 11 verses of chapter 2. And this one is titled The Hollow House of Hedonism, as we continue to explore vanity.
And alliteration.
Exactly. All right. Thank you.